Hello everybody and welcome to the Cedar Bay webinar. My name is Jo Rosser and I'm the Sales Manager of Cedar Bay, and I'm delighted that you've all joined us. What we're going to do today is go through the key benefits of finance in IFS Applications 10. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping messages. First of all, we have you're all on mute at the moment, but we will release that towards the end of the webinar so that you can ask some questions. However, please don't feel that you have to wait until the end before you do ask a question. There's a question box at the right-hand side of your screen, we'd love to get some questions along the way. If we can make it interactive, then we'll try and respond a little bit earlier. We're also going to be recording this webinar throughout, so at the end of the session today, you will see the webinar on the Info Hub within the Cedar Bay website. Also, throughout the webinar, we've got a few questions, so we've got a little bit of a survey. We would really appreciate your support to respond to those questions. There's only 2 or 3, just to give us an idea of the current situation that you've all got out in industry. So if we move on now to the proper webinar, I'd like to introduce you to my colleague Michelle Aklaker in a few moments. She's going to actually do the Applications 10 finance element. But before we start that, I just wanted to go through a couple of key elements of improvements with Apps 10 over previous versions. 4 key areas for you to consider. The first one is lobbies. These are quite a game changer for people moving off 7 or 7.5 or 8 because they're a dashboard, and the dashboards actually summarize a few of the key features within the application, in particular KPIs. In many situations, you can have a dashboard that would be specific for a user, for a role, for a department, or in fact, in some instances, they can actually step across 2 or 3 different departments. For instance, from a management perspective. In finance, often you'll find the finance manager that's got elements of finance management and finance reporting on the dashboard, in addition to elements of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and the cash. In addition to that, we've got real-time data. This is huge, and this is a major improvement on previous versions. It's now far simpler for a manager to make decisions, because they're making decisions on real-time data, which can actually be updated to the minute. So often we go into environments these days with TV screens and monitors around plants, offices, where you can see up-to-date information of accounts paid, bills due, invoices out, orders coming in, etc., etc. In addition to that, we've got extensibility. This is again quite a dramatic change on previous versions, because this allows changes to the core software to be made without actually having to change the underlying code. There is now an additional layer within the IFS architecture which enables users from the front end to go in and just change configuration and add custom fields, custom events, etc. To actually enable you to bespoke certain areas of the functionality without actually affecting or requiring the black art from an IT person in the background to do those changes for you. Finally, another huge change is Arena. This is a new interface for the users. It's much more user-friendly. It's browser-based, and you'll find a lot of the users using Arena because it's more familiar to them. Because it's very similar to a lot of the other software that people find and people are using out in the domestic world. So at this point, Mish, if I can hand over to you, perhaps you could go through some of the specific finance elements.
Thank you, Jo. Can you hear me clearly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, brilliant. Hello, everyone, and good morning to those of you who are tuning in from the States. I'm very excited to run this webinar with you today and run through some brilliant IFS finance functional improvements. My name is Michelle, and you can call me Mish. I am one of the finance consultants here at Cedar Bay. Brief background about myself: I've proudly worked in Cedar Bay for about 3 years now, delivering finance functionality to a range of customers from various industries, including pet care, automobile, food and beverages, and a few others. So let's make a start. So the agenda is quite straightforward. I'm firstly going to touch a little bit on our Arena environment, which is an environment coupled with Apps 10 and soon to be the future of IFS. I will head on to then talk briefly about some key improvements within the Apps 10 Enterprise Explorer and highlight some key areas that I think are very beneficial. And then finally, for the rest of the webinar, I'll be looking at some hand-picked functionality that stands out as some big improvements that IFS has made. All right, so let's begin. So a really brief touch on finance in Arena. So for those of you who don't know, IFS Arena is an intuitive, state-of-the-art, effective, browser-based user experience for IFS application. The system mimics some of the functions that you would use on a consumer application. A good example is if you go to hotels.com or Skyscanner, the user interface is very friendly, and Arena mimics that. Arena allows you to look and work in a way that the system wouldn't allow it through workflows and making key information available. To see this rich information view, let's go into the live version of Arena in our own internal environment. So I'm going to take you there. All right. Joe, can you see the screen? I just want to make sure everyone can see it.
Yes, it's absolutely fine.
Joe, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, absolutely fine.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Joe. All right, so firstly, when we come into Arena, this is our homepage. Now, it doesn't have to be our homepage. We can set this up to our own personal preferences, whether this is our internet portal, our company website, or our very own lobby, which, if you remember, Joe mentioned a bit earlier. Now, just a little bit more explanation on the lobby side. As Joe mentioned, a lobby is essentially a dashboard of real live information changing constantly as transactions, events, and actions take place within the system. Additionally, Arena keeps the layout to be a little bit more familiar and retains some key features. For example, you can see that we've still got our navigator, and we can still add various shortcuts. We can also go into things like our recent screens and view all the different recent screens we've been into. So it does maintain some of the features that you would see within Apps 10 or Apps 9, for example. But to give you a better idea of what a lobby looks like, let's go into the general accounting lobby that I've created. So I've clicked on that little shortcut, which is straight away taking me to that lobby. Now this lobby can also be as part of my homepage. I've called this lobby Mish's General Accounting Lobby, which means you can actually personalize the heading of the lobby. It doesn't have to be a standard IFS lobby, even though there are several standard IFS lobbies available, ranging from operational lobbies to manufacturing lobbies, to lobbies regarding auditing. But you can also create your lobby and you can change the names of your lobby. The first thing you'll notice on this lobby is that I've split everything up into sections. I've got transactional information over here, I've got my audit related information over here, and I've got links to various places at the bottom. I've split this up just for ease to see my different sections, but that's something that you can do as well. You can split things up into different sections, and you can organize things like workflows, you can organize groups of pieces of information together, and you can section it out as much as you want. The other thing to note is that there are various elements on my lobby screen, ranging from things like pie charts to I've got a little traffic light to I've got a tick mark. But I've also got other elements that showcase specific figures and specific values, which provide a clear indication of what's happening within that functionality. So for example, I can see over here that I've got 307 vouchers to update. I've got 173 overdue invoices. And that is quite clear and concise as I see it. The other thing to note over here is that you can actually change the information that you see. So for example, if you've got multiple companies or multiple sites, or generally you might have different transactional information, but you can come into the parameters and you can set as many parameters, and you can even set how many parameters that you want your user to see. But you can go and organize this, you can change the company, you can add project IDs, and you can apply these parameters to the lobby. And the figures within the lobby, the information that's provided in that lobby, that will then change based on the parameters that you've entered. Additionally, you can also add images. You can add images. You can not only add the images within IFS, but you can also add other images, your own personal images. The other thing to note is that when you're looking at the lobby, it's not just information that's in front of you, it's information for you to interact with. And you can go and interact with all this information. For example, if I wanted to see the number of vouchers I have to update, I can go and click on that. And what that will do is it'll take me to the voucher analysis screen where I can see all my different vouchers. And now I can even organize this. And as I mentioned before, one of the things that IFS has done is made it easy to sort of go into and interact with, just like hotels.com or some of the other websites that you're familiar with. So I can come into status, for example, and I can click on it and I can organize it by a specific status if I wanted to. And that will then generate things like, not approved, error. And the other thing that IFS has done is it's gone and it's made things quite clear. You can see that I've got color-coded not approved, color-coded error messages, color-coded awaiting approval. That allows me to clearly see which line has what status in it. So in terms of looking at the information, it's quite a rich view that you can see in front. The other thing you can do is you can change how you see this. You can see it in either the line information as you're seeing it right now, or you can change it to a table view. And that table view will then change that information to have a more table layout that you might be more familiar with if you're using Excel, for example. Now, if I go back, quite easy actually. If you looked, I just went back on the browser button, so it's quite easy to go back and forward as well. But apart from that, you can also go through different types of workflows. So for example, you can hover through these different workflows. You can go and click on each one of these and you can dive into them and carry out a specific workflow. But you also have the option to hover over different icons. So for example, if I come and hover over this, at the moment, it's not got anything under it, it's not got any title next to it. But when I hover over it, I can see that that is 2 serious cases, two normal cases. So I can go and see when I hover over these things. And the same goes for a lot of different elements. I can go into customer groups and I can go and check out different fields and what they mean. I can also have lobbies within lobbies. So for example, I might want to go into my accounts payable lobby, but I might not want to go and search for the accounts payable lobby via the navigator. What I can do is I can have a link to go to the accounts payable lobby. So for example, if I wanted to do that, I can come and click here, and that will straight away take me to my accounts payable lobby where I can see I've got things like invoices to authorize, I've got vouchers to update, I've got overdue invoice amounts, and I've got detailed analytical information. I can see my arrival details, and I can see things like my perfect order analysis where I can look at various suppliers and look at which ones have been incomplete, how much has it been incomplete, which ones are perfect. It also shows me things like supplier reliability, where I can see, whether my supplier is reliable in terms of how much he's delivered on time. The other thing I can do is I can also go into different elements via this. So I can go into invoices to authorize, for example, and I can go and check what's in the invoices to authorize stage. So if I click on this, for example, what it will do is it'll bring me the number of rows. But the other thing to note is that if I hover over these icons and I click on it, I can go and see pieces of information of the supplier, especially if I don't want to go onto the supplier record to get this information. I can add these pieces of information over here if I wanted to. And it's really easy because if I click on this, for example, what it will do is it'll open up an email icon and I can straight away send it to that person. Now I'm going to go back a screen. I'm going to go to my previous lobby, sorry. And you can also see that it's quite varied in terms of how you can structure it. It depends on lobby to lobby, but you can structure it in the way you want to. If you want to have more graphs, if you want to have more charts, you're able to do that. So in terms of flexibility, lobbies provide a great amount of flexibility in terms of providing that information, in terms of doing your workflow and carrying out day-to-day tasks. It's really useful for all different functional areas, not just finance, but specifically for finance, I find it quite useful because finance is the kind of function where you have to go in and analyze various records, you have to go in and take into account reports, and you have to go and update vouchers and do month-end processes, and all of these things require you to form some sort of process, and a lobby provides a great platform to do just that. So this is giving you a very, very brief overview of what a lobby looks like. You can see it's quite rich, you can see it's quite colorful, and it's quite eye-catching. But now that I've given you a bit of a flavor for what the lobby looks like in Arena, what I'll do is I'll go back to our PowerPoint and we'll talk a little bit more about Arena before we go on to the next bit. All right. So, there we go. All right. So, One of the brilliant things in Arena that you can do is actually create workflows. This is an example of a supplier invoice authorization workflow. This can be based on changes such as like if you're an authorizer, if you're a superior authorizer, and that will change accordingly. And the lobby itself, the information provided will change accordingly, as will your workflow. Additionally, it's easy to jump into them and to carry out the action from the lobby rather than going to the navigator and then searching for the screen and trying to find that record. Lobbies ease this on a very grand scale. So a bit of functionality over here in terms of Arena. This slide shows lease accounting screen within Arena, and I just want to mention this because this meets the new lease accounting standard, which is IFRS 16 and the US GAAP ASC 842, which came into effect on the 1st of January in 2019. And as a result, this lease accounting solution was introduced into IFS Applications. Now, one of the features within Arena is that we can actually modify multiple contracts, which allow us as users to handle a large number of lease contracts in one step. Now, the solution itself has been used by several customers who have provided a lot of valuable feedback to IFS. And as a result of this, this is one specific area of the product that they will definitely be improving on. Now, the next slide shows the ease of working in Arena with structures like consolidation structures. Sorting out a consolidation structure and amending the nodes has never really been easier. For example, IFS has added small functions to change the sort order, which doesn't require a right mouse button or a separate screen. Not to mention some of the amazing features it has, such as floating nodes and clear diagrammatic representations of the structures itself. It's quite clear in terms of how you can see it. You can also see things like the status you're in. If you can see on the left-hand top corner, you can see in progress. So it's quite a clear representation of what is happening within that transaction at any given point. All right. Now, you know that Arena's new lobby page doesn't only give you real-time information, but also what's been carried out in the past, such as things like authorized invoices. It's interactive and it's full of information. Even to the extent where when you use these kinds of functions, you'd use them in IFS, but you can also now use them on your phone or your tablet or other devices where the layout of the screen will change according to what device or browser that you're in. That is one of the biggest benefits of being on a browser-based system. Arena doesn't just provide the same functionalities as Apps 10, but it also enhances the user experience and it makes the processes a lot smoother. It uses workflows and structured sections to manage your flow of work. And finance users in particular would love it, especially the fact that it's less complicated, it's definitely more useful, and it's got so much of information that would be used within the transactions and within workflows. All right, so we'll go to the next bit. Before we go on to anything else, onto the second item of the agenda, I just want to point something out really quickly. On the top left-hand corner, you'll see that I've got three titles. I've got concept, I've got solution, and I've got benefits. Now, as we go through the different functionalities, I'll tell you when this will happen. I'll show you, I'll point it out for you. But as we go through the different functionalities, I'll be following this order when it comes to discussing these functionalities. I'll first be looking at the concept. I'm looking at the actual functionality, what it's about. Then I'll be looking at the solution in terms of what IFS has improved on. And then finally, the benefits. How will this add value to your workflow? So if you need to know which bit we're on, just simply look on the top left-hand corner and you'll be able to see. All right. So before we move on, I'm going to hand it back to Joe for a quick survey question.
Thanks, Mish. So you should find now that there's a question coming up on your screen. If you wouldn't mind just ticking the box that's most relevant to you, we would really appreciate that. We'll just give you a few seconds or so and then we'll get straight back.
Great.
Okay. Just give it a little bit longer. You can see not everybody's had a chance to respond yet. Okay. I think we should be able to carry on now, Mish.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go through is we're going to go through some key apps 10 improvements. Now, from a variety of improvements, I've decided to showcase a few of them on this slide that caught my eye. Now, I've also starred some of the ones that I think are extremely beneficial, add high business value and process efficiency, and I've got a little key at the right-hand corner just for your information. Now, all these points listed are new improvements for the finance users of apps 10 and Arena. Now, this ranges from business planning touching on many different areas of functionality coming together to items like period allocating on supplier invoices. Now, as I mentioned before, I can go into all of these because of time constraints, but just to give you an idea of the number of changes just within one of these, I'm going to pick one of them and I'm going to show you the different number of benefits. Now, if you go to the next slide, I've picked out multi-company processes, which if you can see is at the bottom of the slide on the right-hand corner. Within multi-company processes, we can see a number of improvements within the functionality alone. So how each improvement has benefited the business. Essentially, this ranges from reducing manual transactions, thus reducing errors, to a balance analysis with 20 dimensions, to automation of processes such as multi-company voucher entry. I particularly like fixed assets, and you'll soon see that. But over here, you can see that we manage fixed assets on a multi-company level, allowing us greater flexibility in managing parallel depreciation proposals. So out of all the improvements made by IFS, there's so many benefits within each one of them. There's so many new features within each one of them. And it'll take all day to run through them with you. But what I'll do is I'm going to go on to the next bit. So what I'll do now is I'll start with some functionality. I've cherry picked a few, the ones that I thought were really, really beneficial, and I will go through that. At this point, you'll start to notice the concept, the solution, and the benefits. Please let Joe know if you've had any questions. All right, so let's begin with voucher approval. Now, for those of you who don't know what a voucher is, simply put, a voucher in IFS represents a transaction. Whether it's processing customer orders or supplier invoices, all these transactions will create a unique voucher. And this voucher will contain a lot of information in relation to that transaction, such as users, code parts, accounting periods. Now, the voucher approval workflow is used to enter information related to the voucher approvers or the approver groups. The specified approvers or the approver groups will be used in the voucher approval workflow and will be allowed to validate the voucher based on the assigning rules that have been set up, which are essentially rules that are set up to manage who gets to approve what, how much, and in what order. And you can see within the diagram the process that it would take for you to be able to set this up. So we'll have to amend the pattern. So what we'll do is we'll go through the process within IFS so you can see how this works. Now, first and foremost, we take a small checkbox against the voucher type. By doing this, we essentially enable the capability of being able to set approval rules. Without doing this, we wouldn't be able to set up a rule in the first place. This new checkbox is a new parameter within the voucher type screen. So this parameter allows us to go ahead and set up approval rules. And in this setup, you can see a number of parameters we can enter, from monetary limits to the number of approvers, or whether it needs to be in a sequential order. We can also create approval groups, allowing members of that group to then approve the voucher. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you want to set this up with regards to your organization. We can choose to set this up as a multiple assigning rule, and if required, we can change. We can change this based on availability, based on the user groups, based on several different factors. And you can also make the status inactive if you want. If you want some assigning rules to be made inactive or active, you can change that as well. Now, once those two items on the little checkbox and the assigning rule, once they've been set up, this then kicks in the voucher entry process. You'll be able to see it in the specific screen, which is the voucher entry screen. Without those two set up, this will be grayed out. Now, the voucher has picked up in this case that 2 approvers are required and has shown the approver name, amount, and also in which order the approval must be carried out. And over here, we can also see the same information appearing in the GL voucher analysis screen. It provides us a comprehensive little section on who it was approved by, in what order, and again, what date it was approved by. And also, just to add a little flavor, you'll notice that this is in fact a multi-company voucher, which, if you remember earlier, I mentioned has a huge number of improvements in regards to its functionality. It's brilliant to see because essentially these are 2 improved solutions working coherently in harmony together. Just from this alone, we can see that there's a flow. Can you imagine the automation and the efficiency with this functionality working together? Moving on to the benefits of using voucher approval workflows, we can already see the number of gains from this IFS improvement in Apps 10. Not only does it automate some of the process, it reduces the number of paperwork. It allows users to be notified of real-time change with the system, within the system itself, and it creates a consistent, structured business process. The best part is it's easy to track all the approvers within the system. If you go on holiday, you can pass the approval to someone else, and you can use this within your lobby, and you can drive this from your lobby. Right. So we'll go on to the next bit of functionality, which is to do with currency balance. Now, currency balance is a accounting process, allows different currencies, currency differences to be taken into account between the source currency and the actual transaction currency. So that is then considered. In IFS, there are a few changes, not in terms of what is posted, but rather the management of how it's posted. And sometimes making the system easier to manage and configure, it helps you with your business process. So one of the changes that IFS has made is to manage whether the account has been set up for currency balance, because the account itself is what drives the transactions behind the currency balance. Ordinarily, you would either go into an individual account and set this up, or you would go into an overview screen and find and replace it. But in reality, you might not want to set up every single account as currency balance. And on the other side, you might not want to set up 100 accounts individually for currency balance. Now, IFS has provided the option of setting this up at an account group level. This means all the accounts contained within that account group will be impacted. It also means you've got more control over specific groups of account in terms of whether all those accounts have currency balance ticked or not. Now, the other change is the setup on the account level. Earlier on, once the currency balance was ticked, it would not be possible to switch it off. But now we've got the capability of switching off the currency balance checkbox. Now, although it does warn us in the future we might have to make manual adjustments, which is fine because the currency balance takes automated transactions into account when it is ticked. But I do know that some customers do struggle with this because they want that flexibility to manage this aspect of the account, especially if we're going through certain transitions or we're changing our accounting structure. We need to have this sort of flexibility. Now, having the flexibility to go and untick that currency balance and also to go and manage it from a group level gives us an immense amount of control into managing that account. Another major benefit from it is that we're controlling it from a group level. So we're not going into account by account. Managing it from a group level definitely eases the management of several accounts with the setting. Additionally, there is a higher visibility with regards to accurate information, as well as a reduction on manual corrections for transaction exchange gains and losses. So for the next section, I'm going to cover some project management related functionality, in particular the aspect of revenue recognitions. So there are 3 key things that I want to discuss within the project management functionality, and I'm hoping some of you on the call would really find this useful. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to start with is event-based revenue recognition. Now, event-based revenue recognition is a new way to recognize revenue within the project. An event itself could be anything a business would like it to be, whether it's a task, an assignment related to a sub-project. It allows you to set the number of parameters. For example, it allows you to set POC, which is the percentage of completion method, to either manual or actual costs. It allows you to manually key in how your events are progressing. Or alternatively, you can use the system's actual costs. So it also lets you you set different types of estimations for revenue and costs per event. And this looks very interesting in IFS because there are three key places that we need to set up first and foremost. Now, the first place is on the project, where we select a revenue recognition method from a number of available options. As you can see, I've got actual revenue, project completion, and now I've got a new one, event-based. So once we set this up, we can come to our next set of settings, which is to set our estimated revenue and our costs for the entire project. This is standard where you come in and you set your estimates. And once you've done this, you can go onto your revenue recognition information tab and start filling out some very important details. Now, the first thing you notice, as I mentioned before, is that you can set the percentage of completion method. And on this particular occasion, we have set it to manual, which would allow you to go and enter the POC field within the table and manually edit this. There are also other methods such as actual costs and project progress. And you can set your estimated margins as well as create an event ID and specific information that relates to that event. For example, the estimated cost and revenue. Now, using these events, and we can then drive recognition, revenue recognition for the project on an event by event basis. We can see this when we start actually using it within IFS after we've done all the setup. Now, this is the starting point for this process. Once we select our line, we can then right mouse button on it and jump into periodical capitalization and revenue recognition project screen. Now, doing this will take us to a screen where we can then execute our process. Now, once we have arrived here, we can go right mouse button and run the periodical capitalization. This will transfer all the costs from the P&L to the balance sheet. And the brilliant aspect about this is that it can be performed on individual projects, all projects, or user selected projects. And if you want to check the transaction information, all of that is available in the general ledger. All right, so once we've done and run the periodical capitalization, we can then start to proceed to go and execute the revenue recognition process. Once this has been executed, after you've gone in and you've right mouse button and executed this, you can then create a revenue recognition voucher and post it into GL. And after that happens, you'll see the statuses changing throughout. You can see the statuses at the moment acknowledge. It's quite a straightforward function. Once you create the voucher, you'll be able to see all this information visibly in the GL. And once this is done, the cost is then recognized and posted from the profit and loss statement into the balance sheet. So this is just to give you an idea of once you carry these things out, you can see all the transactions taking place in your general ledger. You can see the flow of transactions and the ease of using it on an event by event basis. Now, the first benefit is the ability to define cost and revenue. It provides a great amount of flexibility in terms of managing costs and revenue within the event, as well as processing them into relevant accounting buckets. Additionally, you can flag each event, which enables you to track the events as they get completed and you can also use the POC method, which allows you to update the percentages manually if you choose to do so. And the very fact that it presents the differences in the balance sheet between revenue, cost, provides visibility, it gives you structure, and it provides that coherence that you're looking for in a process. Now, the other thing to note is you're also meeting regulation requirements because you've then, with regards to the event-based revenue recognition, and you've got the capability to then analyze this information using Business Reporter as well. All right, so we'll move on to the Next bit. Now, this is again within the project functionality. So we're going to go on to talking about periodical capitalization and revenue recognition for a set of projects. Now, I think this is some really cool functionality, and I know for a fact that some of you might really look forward to this one. In older versions of IFS, IFS used to calculate revenue for all the projects at the same time. Now, imagine if you have multiple managers, or you've got many timelines on your project, or even imagine you've got 50 different managers who own 50 individual projects. Now, given the level of coordination that would require, it would be a brilliant function to select the project that you actually want to calculate for. So what IFS has done is they've created an element called a procedure, and this procedure allows you to add as many projects as you want, and it also allows you to calculate it per project. As you can see, capitalization over here is running on a combination of projects. The first gray box showing capitalization for project A, B, and C, whereas the second one is D, and the third one is for E and F. So you can see I can combine multiple projects if I wanted to. I can create sets of projects if I wanted to. How does this look within IFS? Well, firstly, we've got two new statuses. We've got partially capitalized and we've got partially calculated, which allows for a lot more flexibility in terms of how you want this process to run. Additionally, the vouchers are created per project. Now, if you remember, we talked about vouchers and how they represented transactions. In this case, it's amazing that IFS creates vouchers per project, but let me tell you why it's amazing. By creating vouchers per project, we are now able to roll back capitalization and revenue recognition for selected projects. Now, this considerably reduces the manual work that it would take if this wasn't the case. The changes in this functionality, it allows users to benefit tracking of all transactions in a significantly more accurate way. It provides the ability to roll back capitalization for specific projects. Now, this is a very good function because earlier on we were not able to roll back for a single project, we would just have to roll back. So this is a very useful function in terms of allowing you the flexibility to select which ones you want to roll back for. Okay, we're on to the next survey question. Jo?
Thank you. So if we just give you guys a few moments just to look at the next question and give us a response, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, just a few more minutes, Mish. A few seconds,
Not a
sorry.
problem, Jo.
Good.
Can you hear me clearly, Jo?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, I think we're in good shape if you'd like to carry on now.
Thank you very much. All right, so now we're going to go into the next bit, again, within the project management functionality, and this is the last part of the set of improvements. Now, in terms of inventory, this can be a major part of the cost of a project. But due to inventory in IFS being treated as an asset, the cost itself is not considered as part of the revenue recognition calculation. So there is a need to optionally treat this project inventory itself as a cost. Now, to do this, we've got two solutions, right? Now, keep in mind that both of them cannot be used at the same time, but there are two different ways to do things. And if you want to keep a track of where I am, just look on the left-hand corner. You can see I'm on solution 1 at the moment. Now, the first solution involves ticking a little checkbox that has been placed on the account screen. Under it, there's a section on project where you can set it to include transactions that flow through the account within revenue recognition. Now, this also allows the balances for project inventory, and it makes them visible within the project total subtab of the actual project. So you can see a little project inventory bar over there, and you can see a figure appearing there once we've gone in and we've checked that little checkbox. All right. Now, furthermore, you can see that the project inventory column, and where applicable, the project inventory field, displays the relevant information from the project. So you can have an entire project inventory column, And if that project has run the revenue recognition, you'll be able to see this. And okay, so the next solution is not set up from the account, but rather it's set up from the posting controls. A new account control type has been created. It's called AC22, and it allows users to create a project connection to certain business events. In this case, we have a connected inventory where we can dive into the details and the structure the project in general inventory. And you can see that we can go into the details and we can connect project inventory and the general inventory side as well. Now, as I mentioned before, we can't use both of them in parallel, and we want to avoid duplicating postings. But however, the very fact that we can treat new inventory transactions as a cost, it provides true visibility, and also it gives you a lot more accuracy in terms of your reporting. It's quite flexible in the sense that you've got a lot more control over your recognition of your cost of inventory, and it also allows you the flexibility of selecting one over the other. All right, so we're going on to my favorite topics, fixed assets. And who doesn't like a little bit of depreciation? So within fixed assets, I'm going to cover two extremely useful improvements. Now, the first one is splitting the depreciation cost over a set of code parts. Let me explain. For those of you who don't know what a code part is, it's a set of dimensions where you can report transactions against in order to structure, analyze, and report within your accounts. Now, within IFS Apps 10, we're able to split the cost of depreciation over these code parts, that is, over these dimensions. So, for example, you may have an asset which involves 3 or maybe 4 different cost centers that require the use of this asset. As opposed to allocating it to one, you can now spread it out in percentages so that all 3 cost centers, as long as those percentages are equal to 100, will take this into account. And it's really, really straightforward in IFS. Now, here you can see I've got a distribution ID and a validity date, as well as a list of all my dimensions, i.e. my centers. You can see this in the little table in the second half of the screen. Here we can enter percentages. This way we carry out the depreciation and the cost is allocated as per the parameters that are set up over here. Now, using this functionality appropriately has many benefits. One of the big benefits is that it allows you to allocate, the representation of how the asset is utilized over its lifespan. It gives you a proper representation, allocating it to the correct code part value. It also means in your reporting side, you've got better analysis and structure when it comes to analyzing your reporting and your transactions and reviewing your costs and where they're going. Now, the second one I'm going to be talking about is putting depreciation on hold. I really like this function because of the level of flexibility that this provides. Now, the idea behind this is that imagine if you had a machine that needed to be repaired or pulled from an operation. During that specific period, you might not want to depreciate on the asset. Now, in this case, what you could do is you could go into the object that you want to put on hold. You can right mouse button on the book that has been assigned. It could also be multiple books. You might have more than one book of depreciation. That's absolutely fine. And you can click hold from depreciation, and this will allow you to enter date ranges as well as a comment, which will be very useful, as we can see over here. Now, this screen, which is objects hold from depreciation, provides an overview of all the objects placed on hold, along with the comments. Note that you can also see that you can also add lines here if you put multiple objects on hold, and it saves you time. So as opposed to going to one object and then changing that and putting it on hold, you can come to this screen and you can bang in several different objects that you want to be placed on hold. And that's not even the best bit. Now, along with putting depreciation on hold, when you run the depreciation proposal for all those periods that you selected, technically it would be taken into account if you didn't have this functionality. You'd have to go and process that depreciation proposal, and it would have to register the depreciation for that month, even though you wanted it to be put on hold. Now over here you can see that I've got two different months, two different periods, and I've put both of them on hold, and it's clearly visible what the amount is, which is 0. It's not charging me for depreciation. And you can see I've put this one on hold, and it's right in the middle. So it's gone, and it's registered that in our accounting side, which means that we don't need to go in and make manual adjustments to take this into account. Now, what I like about this is that it's neat and it's structured. And because of this new function, oddities like repair work and maintenance work can be accounted for in the system itself. Manual adjustments aren't really needed anymore. And my personal favorite benefit is that you can still run a depreciation simulation with an internal book or another book if you want to have that information. So it's possible to keep a depreciation on hold for one book and still run it for another one as a simulation. I quite like that feature. Right, so we're going to go on to our last bit of functionality, which is supplier invoice, and we're talking about the currency support for GRNI. Now, this is a little niggle that has been troubling finance users for a very long time, managing currency when it comes to GRNI. In IFS, we don't have the currency support before because GRNI was only posted in the accounting currency, so currency revaluation was not a possibility. But in order to resolve this, IFS came up with a concept. Once a receipt has been made in the transaction currency, the financial reporting side would then work in the background to consider these exchange rates. When a supplier invoice is created, the difference is calculated. The difference in price variation and currency fluctuations are then taken into account. So at that point of supplier invoices, that difference is then calculated and it's registered in IFS. Now, when this is carried out in action, you'll be able to view your inventory transaction history and see the GRNI account information is now updated with the order currency that has been automatically adjusted. And you can see this over here with the debit entries and the credit entries. The fact that we're able to have this newly introduced functionality, we're able to support the currency revaluation process for the GRNI account, in addition to, of course, improving accuracy and managing buyers and suppliers with relation to pricing. So there's a lot of benefits with regards to having the currency support for GRNI. It means that there's less manual adjustments. It means that you're able to view everything in IFS. You're able to set it up in IFS, and you don't need to export Excel spreadsheets or export the GRNI outside as much. So that consideration has been taken into account by IFS. But on that note, I think I'm going to end my presentation. Thank you so much for joining my webinar. I really hope that I've provided some insights into the wonders of finance improvements made by IFS. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on to the last survey question, and I'm going to hand it back to Joe. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. I really hope you've enjoyed everything that I've covered. Please do let me know if you've got any questions at all.
Thank you, Mish. So this is the final survey question, everybody. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment, very quick one on this situation. So I'll just give you a few more seconds. Okay, Mish, if you wouldn't mind moving us forward. Thank you. So just to summarise, for the finance functionality in Apps 10, there are 3 key areas where we've shown you some benefits. Clearly improved finance transparency, so much more information available to you. There's also a greater inclusion of compliance with government regulations. And finally, better financial consolidation. So 3 major areas of improvement there. Also worth mentioning, as far as Cedar Bay are concerned, we've actually seen quite a few benefits with doing a few of the upgrades to Apps 10. We've actually implemented new implementations to apps 10, and we've also upgraded from apps 7.5 and apps 8. And we've got a very good track record. So if anybody's interested in working with us on an upgrade, we'd love to hear from you. I think a few sort of key areas to mention are the success rate we have in removing modifications. We've never yet completed an upgrade to apps 10 where we've had to keep in any modifications. We've used all the core functionality plus the new features of the extensibility, customization, and we've been able to remove every single modification. And we've had 2 or 3 projects where they've had over 100 mods, and we've reduced them down to 0. We've done that really based on the business experience and the best practice of our consultants. All of our consultants have got some industry knowledge and industry experience, and that does help enormously when you're trying to apply the software configuration to a specific business. We also see a dramatic reduction in reports. We usually reduce reports down to about 20% of the number of reports on the previous versions. And we're very good at helping with moving towards a paperless manufacturing environment. This has become more and more key in the recent months as people have been trying to speed up processes and improve efficiency within their organisations. A lot of that obviously does hinge on significant change management throughout the project. So we've got quite a bit of experience on that as well. So if anybody's interested, please just get in contact and we'd love to help you. So if we move forward now and just ask you to come up with any questions if you've got any. I notice at the moment we don't have questions. Unfortunately, we're going to struggle with the audio, so I can't unmute everybody, but what we can do is just give you a second or two if there are any questions out there. If you'd like to write them down on the dashboard on the right hand side, then Misha and I will be very happy to respond. So if we just give you a minute or two to do that, that would be great. Also, if anybody's interested in a sort of follow-up demo, or if you'd like to speak to an account manager on whether it be finance or anything other than finance, please just reach out and let us know. We're happy to take a call or follow up with a phone call if that would help. Okay. Well, I don't think we've got any questions, so I think we'll just give it one more minute just in case any stragglers come in. Might be a little bit of a delay with the software. No, I think we'll assume that that's fine. Obviously, if anybody does have something that they think of after the event, then please send us an email, drop us a line. We'll do what we can to respond as quickly as possible. In the meantime, I'd just like to say thank you very much. We really appreciate everybody's time, particularly those of you who've got up in the US at the crack of dawn to attend this. We do appreciate that. And we look forward to speaking to you all again. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.